Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report, we're going to be taking a look at another classic firearm. But this one's not a classic because it's famous, but rather because it's infamous. This is one of the most prolific crime guns in U.S. history. This is a gun that is notorious for being cheap and unreliable. It's made by a company that the ATF labeled as one of the Ring of Fire companies that made Saturday night specials. These were to be had in pawn shops for not very much money. Many criminals would buy them, use them for their nefarious acts, and then dispose of them. But I still think these actually have a place in the firearms community, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But the gun we will be shooting and reviewing today is the Jennings Firearms J-25 or the Model 25. This one is in either nickel or chrome with faux pearl grips. It's chambered in 25 ACP. It's a vest pocket gun. The history of Jennings Firearms goes back to 1978, where it was founded by Bruce Jennings. It was later reorganized as Brightco Arms. Then it was sold to Paul Jimenez or Jimenez, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And it's now called JA Industries. These are cheap, of questionable reliability, but as I said, I think they do have a place in the firearms community because the Second Amendment is for everybody. I know I review a lot of very expensive guns, but not everybody in the world can afford a Nighthawk Custom, or maybe they can't even afford a Glock, and this might be all they can get. And in that case, they still deserve the right to own a firearm. It might not be the best, it might not be a gun anybody would recommend, but they still have the right to own it. So in some ways, this gun does belong in the Second Amendment community. But yes, it has that reputation as a crime gun. So I'm really excited to see how this gun shoots because of its reputation. But before we get this gun to the range and find out how it performs, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really interesting gun. He's a local fan and subscriber, and he's lent many other guns to the channel for me to review. His name is Matt, so thank you again, Matt. This one's going to be an interesting one. I always want to thank my Patreon supporters because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not do this without their support. And if you guys want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you get to see all of these videos early, and there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor who provides the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And in today's review, as I mentioned, we're reviewing something that's pretty much a polar opposite of what I normally look at. Guns like Colt 1911s, Beretta 92s, CZ75s, and Browning High Powers, just to name a few. Most of you probably don't even have a Jennings firearm in your collection, but you have those other guns that I mentioned, and you might be in the market for a set of customized wood panel grips to make your guns unique and one of a kind. Well, the perfect grip company for you is Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist and he's a craftsman. He can apply custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, finish these grips in a wide variety of colors, apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin, and even make his own laminate woods. Anything you can imagine, he can make. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. I'm going to ask you to go over there and see everything he has to offer. And when you place your order for your first set of custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so once again, what is the little pistol we will be reviewing today? The Jennings Firearms J-25, or otherwise known as the Model 25. This is chambered in 25 ACP. It's a vest pocket sized gun. It is striker fired. It is made from injection molded Zamek, which is a zinc alloy. So we're not even talking pot metal here. We're talking something pretty darn cheap. It is either finished in chrome or nickel. It has faux pearl grips, and it has a 6-round magazine. These were very affordable guns back in the 70s and 80s, and why they got the reputation that they did. They're not known for accuracy or reliability. So this is going to be really interesting. So, as always, before taking this gun to the range, I want to talk about the things that I like and don't like. And I always want to start with the positive first. And I know what you're thinking. How in the world can you take a Jennings J-25 and find anything positive to say about it? Well, I think I can. Let's talk about the aesthetics of this gun. You know, it's not really an ugly gun at all. Normally when it comes to very cheap guns like High Points, they look like blocks. They look bricky. This gun actually has some curves to it, so I can give them some credit for the design. It does have a safety. The finish on it is okay for what it is. You have those faux pearl grips. So overall, the aesthetics of this is pretty nice. Now, the other thing about this gun I'm actually kind of surprised about is the trigger. Now, I'm pretty sure this trigger mechanism is relatively simple, and it has a straight pull back into the frame just like a 1911. And so I have dry fired this here on the bench, and I have to say it's not that bad. Obviously, it's not going to be the greatest trigger in the world, but I want to show you what this trigger is all about. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera, get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and actually put this on the scale and measure it. So let me do that now. So let's take a look at this Jennings J-25 and what this trigger is all about. Let's start this by dropping the magazine, and this actually can be kind of hard. We do have a heel release here on the bottom, which we will talk a little bit more about. You pull that lever back and you can kind of finagle this magazine out of there. It's a little bit difficult to remove it, but there it is, that little 6-round magazine. And then, of course, we will safety check this gun, ensure there is no ammunition in that chamber, and it looks like we are good. So let's start off with what this trigger looks like. You do know the gun is cocked if you see the striker protruding out the back. And here is our take-up. It's actually a really short take-up, and you come back to a pretty definitive wall. It's a little bit on the heavy side, but not too bad for what it is. And then let's take a look at this reset. That's it, really. And then you're back at that wall. The reset is not tactile or not audible, but you don't really have to pull the trigger out that much for it to reset. All right, so let's see what this trigger actually weighs at when it comes to its pull. So let me get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge. Let me clear the averages. And let's test it. For our first pull, we have 5 pounds, 15.5 ounces. Six pounds, 4.2 ounces. 6 pounds, 0.4 ounces. Six pounds, 1.3 ounces. And finally we have 6 pounds, 11.2 ounces. So we're not getting the most consistent pulls on this one, but as you see, it's not the worst trigger in the world. I've definitely reviewed guns that are much more expensive that have worse triggers than this, but this gives us an average of 6 pounds, 3.3 ounces. So as I said, not the worst trigger in the world. So that's what this trigger is all about. So now let's talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. The first thing I don't like, I've already shown you, and that is the heel release for this magazine. Inserting the magazine is not too bad, but getting it out is kind of a pain. It kind of sticks in there, and you have to pull this back kind of far, and then you have to push out on the base plate to get that out. This gun is not designed for quick reloads. Another thing I don't like is the capacity. Obviously, this is a very small gun. This magazine will actually hold 7 rounds, but you should only load it to 6. That 7th round will not feed into the chamber if you try to load it, just because the way the magazine is designed. And finally, the last thing I don't like is this gun does not have a slide hold open. It would be really nice if after the last shot in a magazine, the slide would stay open to let you know you're empty, but you do not have that option. Now, I know this is a very, very cheap gun, but those are the things about this that I don't like, and I'm not really sure about the manufacturing of these and how hard it would be to add some different features to it, nor do I think the companies care about those features, but that's just my personal thoughts on this, and I actually think for such a cheap gun, adding just a couple of things like a slide stop or a better magazine release would actually make this a pretty decent vest pocket gun. Alright, so that's what this gun is all about, so let's get it to the range. Now, I have 2 magazines for this review, and because these only hold 6 rounds, I'm going to change the magazines out to give us a total of 12 rounds for every test. Now, normally when it comes to a pistol, I will start at 7 yards, but in this case, I'm going to start at 5, because this gun is designed for close-up personal engagements, and these sights are not all that good. So I want to see what it shoots like at 5 yards and see if it's even accurate. So let's go to the range, put some rounds through this, and see how it functions. So really the only issue I had was trying to load that first round. It just didn't want to go into the chamber off of the feed lip. So all I had to really do was just push the slide forward and it worked. Then I had no other issues. Now let's talk about the accuracy of this gun. Hey, at 5 yards, it was an okay group, and it looks like those projectiles actually stabilized. Well, no issues so far. Everyone said this thing is an absolute piece of junk, but hey, it worked for me. All right, so now let's double the distance on this target. I'm going to go for 10 yards and going to put 2 more magazines through it, and hopefully the reliability and the accuracy of this little Jennings is going to continue. So let's go back to the range and find out how it does. And now we're experiencing the feeding issues that everybody talks about. But what's worse than the feeding issues is the ability for you to clear them. Pretty much, if anything gets caught in this chamber, you want to hold the slide back. Oh wait, you don't have a slide stop, so you have to use your hand and hold it back. Then you want to drop the magazine. Well, I've already shown you getting this magazine out is kind of a pain in the butt. So you're having to hold the slide back, drop the magazine, and then tilting the gun to the side to try to clear any malfunction. So this is a gun that if you mainly have an issue with, you might as well just throw it at the bad guy instead of trying to clear the malfunction. But let's talk about the accuracy. The gun continues to be decent in that department. These little sights aren't that bad. It actually works. I thought at 10 yards I wouldn't even hit the target, but we actually were able to get a group. So I'm really surprised. All right, so now let's try to bench rest this at 25 yards. Now, I have never seen anyone try to shoot one of these at 25 yards, and that's really past the functional practicality of any gun like this. But so far the gun's been accurate, so we might get at least some rounds on target. So let's go out to 25 yards and see if I can shoot this thing worth a darn. And now I think I am more surprised than you are. I did not even know I would get that decent of a group with that gun. I'm going to have to hand it to them for these little tiny sights. And let me tell you, they are super tiny. They're actually right on. There's no adjustments on them, of course. But you can see that front sight through the rear sight, and everything does seem to line up and work. So if you take your time with this, and with that pretty decent trigger, I'm able to get rounds on target at 25 yards. I was not expecting that. Now, as I said before, this is a gun that was primarily designed as a cheap firearm for self-defense. And yes, criminals did use them, but if you bought this for self-defense, even though 25 ACP is not a caliber recommended for self-defense, you might have to use it as such. And of course, you're going to want to know, will this thing feed hollow points? Because you're going to want your 25 ACP to have the best chance as possible at stopping a bad guy. So hopefully some hollow points are going to run in this. I don't know if they will or not, so let's go back to the range and see if hollow points run in this really cheap J-25. And here we go with more feeding issues. However, I don't think these issues are being caused by the shape of the projectile as much as this ammunition seems to be weaker than the ball ammunition that I was using before. I was using Winchester white box range ammo previously, and now these hollow points just seem to be dribbling out the side when it comes to the ejection. The ball ammo was ejecting just fine, so I really think if you would find hollow points that were loaded to higher velocities, it actually might work in this. Even though they weren't loaded very powerfully, I could tell that those projectiles were stabilizing on the target. So the feeding issues, I think, are because of the ammunition and not the projectile. So that was kind of an interesting result. But if you own one of these, let me know if you've ever done ammo tests and what you discover. All right, so the last test I want to do is a defensive use test. Essentially, I want to load up both of these magazines. I want to shoot this gun as fast as I possibly can. I want to see if I can change this magazine out quickly, and I can't even change it right now very easily, so I don't think I'm going to be successful at that. And I also want to see if this gun is point shootable. Essentially, if you're pulling this gun in self-defense, you probably just have enough time to point it at the person you're trying to stop and pull that trigger and pray. You're not going to have time to find these little tiny sights. So, can I shoot this gun fast? Can I change the magazine out fast? And is this gun naturally pointing? Well, let's go back to the range and see if I can fire this thing very well at all under these circumstances. So let's break this test down. Can I shoot it fast? Well, actually, yeah, I kind of can. Not as fast as a 2011, but I can get some rounds down range in a short period of time. Can I change the magazine out quickly? Well, no. I'm even struggling with it here. So I say if you have this gun and need to do a quick reload, it's better just to throw the gun at the person you're trying to stop, because this thing pretty much becomes a brick. You're not going to change that magazine out quick at all. Is the gun point shootable? Actually, yeah, it is. I think all those rounds were on target. That kind of surprised me. So I can see as a last-ditch backup gun, it actually would work. I didn't even have any jams in that last session. So I have to give it some points. It kind of works. So what are my final thoughts on the Jennings Firearms J-25 or Model 25? I actually can see some potential in this gun. I could see if they would change the material that it's made out of, add a couple of features to this. It might be a decent vest pocket 25 ACP. It might even rival in quality the Colt Jr. I don't think it would ever beat the Beretta 950 BS. Those are just fantastic guns of this size, but I can see some potential here. The gun actually gave me some pretty decent accuracy at all distances, and it wasn't the complete jam-o-matic that everyone claimed it would be. Yeah, I did have some problems, especially with the hollow points, but I think that had more to do with the power of the ammunition more than the projectile shape. So overall, it's actually okay for what it is. So I come away from reviewing this gun very surprised. So on my star system, how would I rate the Jennings J-25? Well, I'm going to give this 3 out of 5 stars. I was expecting it to get a 1 or a 2, but because of its accuracy and occasionally it ran okay, 3 out of 5 stars I think is pretty fair. I would definitely not recommend this gun for anybody for self-defense, home defense, or any type of defense at all. I wouldn't even recommend it as a backup gun. The caliber is too anemic. But I could see as a collector having 1 or 2 of these in your collection. Yeah, they're going to be super duper cheap. But if you like to collect guns with some type of historical significance, hey, you can't go wrong with this one. It's kind of an infamous gun, and that might be just what you want to collect. So what do you guys think? Do you like the Jennings J-25? Have you ever owned one or any of its derivatives by all those other companies? Do you own any Saturday night specials? And what do you think about shooting vest pocket guns? Can you shoot them accurately? I was surprised by this one. So let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.